Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how did you know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, there were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast, Wednesday night edition. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Danny Guru. Hey, Dan.
Jen, it's good to see you. Lori, you as well.
Good to see you. Tonight we have a special guest with us, Lori Bell. Hi, Lori.
Hi, Jen. Hi, Danny. So happy to be here.
Can you turn up your mic a hair?
Yeah. Let's see. How's that?
I can hear you better now.
Yeah, sounding okay. Great. So I'm here to do some face reading.
Yeah.
I read faces.
Yes. I'm super excited about that.
Can't wait to see how this all intertwines. It's going to be so wonderful.
Yep.
Absolutely. We got a special one tonight, guys. We're going to be diving into George Soros' chart. I put down that he was the lead elite activist. I think it's important that we decode his design. But before we do that, it is August 17th, 2022. If you are listening to this on one of our podcast stations, Spotify, Amazon, we're on Google Cast. You can find us on Anchor. Actually, you can go to our website and can find all the links there. If you want a copy of this chart, make sure to look in the description. You'll be able to find a PDF downloadable copy for you to follow along with the show. And with that said, I'm going to open it up to Dan. You want to start
before
decoding?
Before we even get started, though, so Lori's, I've watched Lori's TikTok video. So Lori's on TikTok, she's on Instagram, and I forgot what the first one was I watched. I was like all dumbfounded. It was good, and this was already after she read my face, and I decided she was reading a human design chart and just not telling me, and that's a joke, of course, and yeah, no, it's good. So TikTok, I don't know, I forgot what's your handle on TikTok, Miss Lori.
My handle is Modern Hypnotist Lori on TikTok, and I just read faces and kind of teach people how to read faces. Face reading is rooted in ancient Chinese wisdom. They used to identify people and their characteristics and their personalities based on features on their face. I'm not talking about phrenology. We're not reading bumps on heads. I'm talking about every facial feature means something about that person's personality. Musculature changes over time. If we have a certain emotion over time, it's going to change the shape of our face. We can see stippling in the chin of people that feel a lot of fear over long periods of time. People's eyes get smaller when they get more skeptical over time and they don't trust people as easily. This happens in business. When people get real business savvy, their eyes tend to get smaller over time. So every feature on our face means something about our personality. And I have just, like Danny said, been blown away how this correlates to human design and how we literally get the same read on someone with different language, and it just blows my mind. So
It blows my mind, Jen. It blows my mind. It was like, what? Huh?
Well, we were talking about it before you popped on. She popped up on my For You page on TikTok, and that's when I asked you, is this the Lori you've been talking about? So I didn't know much about the face reading, but I watched some of your videos, and it's pretty fascinating. And she read a couple of things with me, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's spot spot on with
Yeah.
exactly what my design
what we were
is.
figuring when a text conversation, just to sort of lay a certain platform. And Lori, I sure hope we can have you back too after this show, which I think is going to go well. But I remember we were texting back and forth, and I think what I came up with is, why wouldn't it show up on the face? It's just it's the genome that determines the face. It's the genome that determines the color of the hair, and it's the genome that determines our genetic matrix, our design. Why
Right.
would that bubble up into something that shows up on our most expressive organ? It's not an organ, but I'm calling it one for now.
Yes.
The face. It's everywhere. And Lori, how
I
many
know that all
muscles?
too well.
It takes how many muscles to frown versus how many muscles to smile?
Oh.
It's like an incredible difference between the two.
I can't even remember. Yeah, it's an incredible difference. Yeah.
Like many more to frown. It takes like everything to frown, and the smile happens like naturally.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that should say something about humanity. We're supposed to be smiling, not like
That's
this crazy bastard. You got a picture of him, and did you look at pictures, Miss Lori?
Oh gosh, I like his face is burned into my brain. I'm just kind of. I've been constantly having bad taste in the back of my throat.
Oh,
I will be Switzerland. I am Switzerland with my reading. All personal feelings aside, my reading is Switzerland. I am going to look at his face and I'm going to say, this, according to face reading, means this, and this means this. And I'm not going into how I feel with this. I'll be Switzerland, but
okay.
yeah.
Well, I'll go into how I feel, and I'll cover the feelings for both of us. And
I would love that, because you
Yep.
probably feel the exact same I feel, because that picture burn in my head has caused a bad taste in the back of my throat all day. So
let's come up with a nickname for him. That's anyone want a nickname? Rat
yeah, I
bastard.
think that's quite apropos.
Rat bastard. Okay.
There you go. I like it. It's very fitting.
Yep.
I put a snake next to the title because that's what he is. He's a snake.
Yeah, rat snake bastard. Maybe we could
Yep.
maybe we could say that and
There
cover
you
all
go.
bases.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. All right, pull him up. Let's
All right.
check out Mr. George Soros. So
Here we go.
a reminder, this is a form of a human design disclaimer. So his design is perfect, of course. And he was actually born perfect. So George, you were born perfect, buddy. Sorry that separated shortly after and you became you, but so the design itself is perfect. The human being inhabiting the body with this giant not self, old seven-centered hierarchical way. That guy's a very bad man. He's just awful. But in all fairness, his design is perfect. So we'll do some back and forth, I guess, Lori. I'll say a little bit and then I'll hand it over to you. So George Soros is a 1-3 profile. That first line, if it's playing out in an entitled way, he needs to be the authoritarian of everything, or else his third line will tear it down. Give it to me, it's mine, or I'll wreck it for everyone. That's George.
That's
in
what he's doing.
In his most extreme, not self-old way. Don't forget, there's the old way and the new way. The new way is love and light. I mean, that is actually a way. The old way is domination and control and kill it all. And, so.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, everybody's going to give it to him. Everybody's going to give it to him so he doesn't wreck it. And everyone's going to give it to him because he holds more authority in his face, maybe than anyone I've come across so far. And that's in his lower part of his face here, the way that it sags. The amount of authority that he holds in his face is so much that people just jump to do what he says.
That's striking. This authority, you're gonna say something, Jen?
No, I'm listening.
This authority you just referred to, so I'll go straight to that. Channel 2145 from the throat down to the ego. Part of it is he's got some black in there, so he's aware that he knows he's entitled. It's off of the corner of the throat going down to the red ego triangle. And he thinks that he's entitled to stuff, and he's unaware, because gate 21 is unconscious, that he needs to be in control of everything, yet he acts it out all the time. So by now in his life, he's acted out that he knows he thinks he is supposed to be. He's entitled to be in control. That's the difference. So the 21 is control. and it's supposed to control things. A well-oiled working 21 is going to control the environment so everyone can survive. That's handy. We need that. 45, a well-oiled 45 just wants to educate the masses and make sure all the people are fed so that everyone's on the same page, yet still can be their unique self. But because his control feature is unconscious, he just has to rage out his control. And when he sees himself doing that, because the unconscious is revealed to us, so we do it and we don't realize it, it's red, we start doing it, and next thing you know, it's revealed to us, and it's easy to make up reasons why we have it. So the not self-open head of George Soros is going to make up a formula to kill the confusion, and the formula is going to be, I'm entitled to all of that. Yeah, no, that's right. It's okay that I had people killed. I'm entitled to do that. It's okay that I'm entitled to do it. And that just grows. At his age, it's so cemented in place. It's like it's a nuclear bomb in him. Yep.
Yeah. We'll see. Typically, someone like him, he's got like this square face, but the bottom half of his face is getting heavier and heavier over time. A young George Soros, the shape of his face looks very, very different. The heaviness at the bottom, it can start to get so heavy that the top starts looking smaller and the bottom starts looking heavier. This is something that we see in dictators. You think of Kim Jong-un or other dictators, they start to get this heaviness in the bottom half of their face, which he over time has been getting more and more and more. So headed towards that dictatorial attitude. I mean, he's there already.
Oh, yeah. Look at the middle one where he's middle-aged with a nice blue suit on. This is probably...
This one, yes.
Yeah.
Sure, or even down one and over a few to the left.
Right.
Building in the background.
Yeah.
It's great. Been happening.
Yeah, you get a real young George, and he just didn't have that heaviness in the bottom of his face.
I see that. Wow.
Yeah, here's another one.
Yeah. You know, he's also had a lot of plastic surgery. I mean, he's who knows how many eye lifts he's had, a butt ton. I'll tell you that right now. Old pictures of George when he's younger, you blow up those faces. And
go to the far left one where he's reading a magazine. Yep.
This one?
There you go. Yeah.
Does that open up?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, it's different. The bottom half of his face is not as heavy. Yeah, so
Nope.
he's
Totally.
getting more controlling and turning into more of a dictator with age and with money.
So
I'm curious to know what newspaper he's reading, because they always stage something in whatever they're doing. So I wonder what the headlines are. I'll have to look at that.
well, it's there on his table. So he was pulling apart a newspaper like my mom pulls apart, say, the New York Times.
Oh, I know, but everything that they do is staged.
Yep. All right, go back to his chart, because there's something I said in my text message, just that his the channel that he has on the far right. So it goes all the way up to from 36 up to 35. Mm-hmm. This is the channel of transitoriness. It's a life force in him. It's wildly emotional. It goes up and down through a crash wave. And George's face, as far as I can tell, is the roadmap of someone who hasn't understood he has an emotional wave. Both of you guys have an emotional wave, now I think of it. So you guys have come to know in a nice, light, loving way, hey, there's ways we have to start to recognize this. So you guys aren't dictators. You know, I'm not a dictator, but he doesn't know because he grew up in such privilege. This crash wave wants to experience everything. It is loaded with expectation, and the expectation inside of him is alive and well, and it's in his conscious 36. 36 is black, so he's aware that he brings a crisis to everything. In fact, he thinks crisis is a tool. He thinks crisis is something you sprinkle on your cereal in the morning to make it taste better.
He's probably looking for crisis to do that.
Well,
that's why they create the crisis.
Well, quite literally, he thinks that that's actually okay. And his 35 is unconscious. 35 is the manifesting of that crisis, where it's not supposed to be the manifesting of the crisis. It's just supposed to be the completion, the progress. The crisis is only there to say, hey, I'm inexperienced. So the second something doesn't go George's way, the authoritarian comes out and says, I'm inexperienced in this not going my way. This is a crisis. And he then lays this unconscious expectation upon himself and everyone around him. And because this emotional wave is so powerful And because he's got that powerful ego defined in him, that is the ruler of the tribe. This is the channel of the ruler of the tribe, that 2145. When you add that to this crash wave, what you've got is anyone around him will be afraid to basically butt up against him because his wave will show on his face. Jennifer, he can't hide his face. I promise you that. He doesn't have a good poker face. And my guess is because of that, that's one of the reasons he's always out of the view. You notice George is, yeah, he's not face number one like Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab and the guys that own Google and all those guys. We know them like it's nothing. George, we have to sort of dig in. Who's George Soros? You know, we know of him. He's like the ghost. And that's because he keeps himself out of it, or else he'll blow up. He knows he blows up. Manifesting generator. I'm fast and I will blow up fast in response to whatever it is I think I don't like. That's George.
That's so funny because I got what you're talking about. I have written down right here, having to do with his eyebrows and the shortness of his eyebrows and how they're positioned on his face. As someone who only takes care of himself, puts himself first, no one else matters, controlling, short-tempered, throws baby fits, unforgiving. He has bad relationships with his siblings, bad relationships with other people in his family, spiteful, jealous, rageful. I mean, all of these things come up in his face reading.
As they should, because I can't imagine anyone in his family does anything but pay gratuitous nods to him. No one's there. We love you, Brother George. Maybe there is, though. Very likely.
Yeah, after he donates a bunch of money to one of their causes.
Well, very likely there's one. You know what I mean? Because there's no rule on love.
Yeah.
What's that, Lori?
Yeah, those relationships, I mean, those aren't going to be real tight relationships, you know. Yeah, I'm sure people obviously love him when they donate to it. He donates to their charity, but he's incapable of making real internal tight relationships with people that last because he's too self-serving. All the features on his face, he has so many features for selfishness and self-serving and I before anyone else that there's no way that he has flourishing relationships.
Well, that goes right into his gate for his channel of structuring, 4323, and his body graph between the green ajna and the throat. It's unconscious. I mean, please recognize all of his life force, except for one, is got unconscious definition in it, and two of them are totally unconscious. So this is one of them. So again, for everyone to remember, a life force is when two gates come together and become a channel. It becomes a quantum. They become greater than the sum of their parts, and it becomes a force in the life that you can count on. That's why we call it a life force. It's something that's written into the person. Channels are the life forces of the people, unless you're a reflector. This channel of structuring says, I'm not listening. I know better. I know I'm not listening. You can't influence me. I tuned you out. It's a channel that can be incredibly deaf to the other because it's so noisy inside of his head. And the noise is coming through unconsciously. So again, he figured this out over time, that what I know, I then implement. And it's not for humanity. Over time, as we become less and less important to him because he does not mingle with the people and he cannot be conditioned by our aura, we become vermin and expendable to these elites that live up here in this strata. It's just a thing. I will go on record. It's not his fault. He was raised in it. He actually doesn't know any better. I'm glad he's 90-something years old because he probably won't be around much longer unless he's doing all kinds of other stuff that keeps him alive longer, which I guess I can't say out loud. But so yeah, I'm in control. Listen to me. I know. And all of that feeds into that ego of his that thinks it's in charge of everything when it's really just here to be in charge of itself and literally help to educate folks. So he's gone awry. He's gone off the rails as far as his design is concerned.
Yeah, and his mother didn't nurture him. I think we should just all know that George's mom did not nurture him. That's in his face too.
That shows up? Where does that show up?
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. I was like, Wow.
It shows up in a really tiny mouth, a small mouth. And his mouth would be considered small for the size of his face. It also can show up when people have deep depressions underneath their cheeks. You see this in a lot of models, people with eating disorders, you know, the cheek kind of goes in. I have a little bit. My mom didn't nurture me. It's, yeah, size of the mouth and then indentations underneath the cheeks. And you can tell that this person just didn't receive adequate nurturing for whatever reason.
This person wouldn't have received adequate nurturing, except,
You're right.
well, you know what? From 0 to say 4 and 5 and 6, absolutely he could have. So you're probably right, Lori, because clearly he did not get the right conditioning growing up to recognize that he's part of a true global village, and you know, the actual massacre and control of people is not something that the new way would ever want to do. So chances are his own mother grew up with the same privilege he grew up with. This family money travels down lineages going back centuries and maybe even millennia for all we know. So they never knew what it was like. So why would they be? So nurture, I can see that going out the window.
I have a question real quick on that.
Yeah.
So is there a particular reason why it gets indented? Like, is it like are they grinding? Is TMJ, can that trigger TMJ? I'm wondering with the
So a
indenting.
lot of this, yeah, so a lot of this has to do with the fact that we are trying to see how to explain this. We are metaphorical beings, and there's a lot of metaphor that goes into face reading. So if we go way back into if archaeologists go way back and they start studying symbols, and the symbols across different continents have the same meanings, tend to have the same meaning. So we have circles, which represent the sun, the breast, things that nurture, things that build up. And then we have other things that destroy, the knife, sharp objects, things that kill or break down. And so in the face, when there's a lot of love and kindness, there's a building up in the fact that we get round features and padding. And when there's a withholding of that kindness or there's cruelty, then we get the tissues start to shrink. And it's just metaphor. Things that are padded and round, good. Things that are shrunken or sharp or bony, indicative of not so good, not so nice. You can see this on Disney. Disney uses face reading. You can see it on Disney princesses, right? We've got these nice round faces, round eyes, fullness. And then you look at Disney villains and we've got boniness and chins and things like this. And so it more just has to do with nurturing, buildup of tissue, cruelty or withholding, breakdown of tissue. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. It's very fascinating. The reason I asked is because I'm through my sessions with my clients, I look a lot into the metaphysical anatomy. Mm-hmm. So the energetic of why this ease is manifesting. So when you said that, my first thought was, is the child, or in that moment, are we doing something, or are they doing something to compensate, to cause that indentation inside? So what you said makes sense, because on an atomic level, it's restructuring things.
Yeah, it's restructuring things. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
This man is very much living out his not self design. He's living out, again, the conditioning that would have taken him away from his nature. His nature would have been to struggle for purpose and come up with the formulas and principles that help enact the purpose. And that's gone off the rails. That would be in his nature. It's right there in his incarnation cross. And to be able to explain all of that. But he's got this open head center, and that open head center is conditioned along with that open G center, that George Soros has been looking for love his whole life. And he doesn't know where to put his love and to have it go in the right direction. And his open head center is constantly thinking about things that don't matter, and too much things and too muchness. And there's too many things that come through. I wouldn't be surprised if he shelters himself from all of it by having other people take care of everything, because, and that this still doesn't stop too muchness from going through. Too muchness, not knowing what to think, not knowing what to think about, what questions to answer, leads him to definitely not knowing the answers to the question of, is my love moving in the right direction? And when you take those two things out of the being, the not self of that being says, I must control it, I must have it, I must skull fuck it, I must ruin it if I can't have it. My struggle is the most important thing, and I know. I'm keynoting his channels, and I know. And I will make you afraid of me if you don't know what I know. Because that's his only club. His only club is basically, I don't have the love in my life that I think I'm aware of and don't want to admit, while at the same time, I don't know what to do about it, so I'll control you. This is George Soros, especially with all those right arrows. His whole variable is pointing left arrows. The variable is pointing all to the left. That makes George a calculated, strategic, active, being observed and focused on one direction, one thing. He's narrowly focused on his strategic way, and it pulls him into the old seven-centered way. When you have all left arrows, if you're not careful, you can easily be pulled into the coldness and the darkness of what was our old seven-centered way compared to our new nine-centered way. Remember the difference. The old way was hierarchical, draconian, controlling, and they needed that for 100,000 years. They needed some of that just to survive as a species in the wild. I'll grant you that. But we have evolved long since. The new way requires that we commune and basically not take everyone else's stuff. He's happy to make sure everyone else loses their stuff, except for the people that he chooses to reward because they are loyal to him. He demands absolute loyalty. Demands it.
Yep. Are there any channels or gates that you can see related to money in him? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's so funny. The channel 2145 from the ego up to the throat is keynoted with the channel of money and materialism. The control of the tribe to absorb and have the riches that then are supposed to be distributed and worked through. He's allowed to live a good life. Leaders have a good life. That's okay. We don't mind that as long as we're all okay. And he's perfectly fine to let everyone be not okay and still have a good life as it relates to money. Money. That's the first thing he does. He counts his money every day. That's what this channel does to people when they have the whole thing.
It's funny, if you look at his nose, if you look at his nostrils, I feel like I'm always talking about nostrils on my...
You talk about nostrils a lot. I like it.
There's so much you can learn from nostrils. So if you look at his nostrils, you can see there's a flare. It has nothing to do with the size of the nostril or it's just a flare, like someone's flaring their nose, and you can see it in his nostril. You see this in people that have a lot of money and have a really big love of money and think about money a lot. It causes a flare in the nostril. So I think it's interesting that he has that, along with in his eyebrows, there's, greed, money grabbing, constantly thinking about money, like you're saying. That's in his face as well. Yeah. So I was curious.
I've watched enough of your videos, so I've seen the three zones of face reading. I can't remember them off the top of my head now, but I remember the three zones in the forehead from like the eyes on up or something. You always said, I have a feeling something you're going to say about forehead, or that you may be able to say about foreheads, has to do with his sun earth on his, it's just a gut feeling I have about his sun earth is on the personality side, that gate 4 and that gate 49. I've got them open here in the book and I'm going to read them in a minute.
Yeah. He's heavy in the lower two sections of the face. So this is, from a face reading perspective, this is not somebody that sits around and thinks a lot. He's probably having other people think for him, because his forehead is rather small. And so the lower portion of his face, so this is a person who's more of a doer than a thinker. He exists more in the realm of the physical material than he does in the mental, emotional, spiritual space.
Well, check this out. Holy cow. So the not self of George Soros, the thing that really gets him to be what we know him to be, is the first line. So gate 4 of his sun earth, and Lori, quick education, just the gates of your sun earth become 70% of who you are, what we can read to on the surface, especially. So we can always go to a Sun Earth and just read for someone, and we'll get so much. You know, you have a 10 and a 15 in your Sun Earth, as I recall, and that makes you the love of humanity and the love of yourself in it. You know, so this 4, this is about making a formula. Gate 4 is called Youthful Folly, formalization. It begins the awareness, the mental awareness process of coming up with logical formulas. Now, hey, we need that, you know. It's logical to make a sewerage system to make all our stuff go out into a place, not stay in the city. That's logical, right? That's a Gate 4 thing. It's logical to have the buses run on time. It's logical to make the streetlights work right? These are all logic stuff. So youthful folly, the energy, and it needs a special energy because the formula starts at 0. It starts at a doubt. So it's not like the formula is necessarily right. It's got to be given a pass so that people don't just judge you based on the formula that shows up. It's called youthful folly, the energy to beguile and succeed despite ignorance. He doesn't need to know. Yep. And it gives him a certain freedom from retribution. So growing up, he would have realized I have a certain freedom from retribution to the stuff I think. And especially as a kid, kids always get a pass, right? You're a child, you know, so he would have learned this as a skill and been entitled to do so. Gate 45, entitlement in who he's not. And it's a line 1, pleasure, human pleasure. There's a pleasure in logic if it works out right. It's a certain pleasure that feels right. But when it's working through him, it's supposed to be about the timing to allow the formula out at the right time. Timing is everything to this. And then you can have an enlightened, you know, 9-centered pleasure with more love and light in it. But when it goes to the darkness and it stays there, it's this timing that is not the product of discipline to wait, formulas that are not the product of discipline that waits for the right timing. No. It's exaggerated self-discipline and the self-indiscipline that leads to the abuse of pleasure, the potential to recognize, but the urge to force the timing for the purpose of pleasure.
I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah. Now that in a regular being could have this 4th line and could waffle between these two things. They would supposed to be. That's how they would learn. They would learn, oh dear, I indulged too much. And then they would go back. They would go back and forth and we would value and cherish their awareness in the life that came up with that. There's nothing wrong with a Gate 4 line 1 in either expression. They're both perfect. Remove that person from the society and you get the detriment only. And it's this pleasure that could care less about the timing, exaggerated sense of self, and exaggerates the timing towards pleasure. Give it to me. I want it. It's like mine. That's all he does. He's a 4-year-old that just wants to play with all the blocks.
It's creepy too, Danny. I am remembering going down a rabbit hole, stinking rabbit holes, where I went down and I saw a bunch of his art collection and the art he chooses to collect. And everything that you just said about the pursuit of pleasure without caring, literally, if you think about his creepy art and these children in these weird positions, it just like, and then he's got, what is that statue he has that hangs, that like brass statue of that man who's insane, bent backwards. He's just, his art.
It was Jeffrey Dahmer's victim.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I mean, the art that he chooses to have, I feel like represents exactly what you're saying about in his human design. So creepy.
Ew, it is creepy.
I don't think was it George Soros that had the Podesta art, or was it Podesta that had it, or Soros? I can't remember,
okay, but I know that they're buddies.
Yes, but I know exactly what you're talking about, and I didn't think about that when he was saying that. And you're exactly right.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm not misspeaking. But I'm pretty sure
it was Jeffrey. It was the victim of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
And who would want?
Okay, I think that it says. I could be wrong, but I do know that he has collected a lot of art from a woman who paints children in very strange and uncomfortable positions, like children scantily dressed, lined up in bathrooms and weird things like that. is in his art collection. Just fits with what you're saying. Yeah.
It makes me gulp. So
Yeah.
that gate 4, line 1, the sun earth is 49, line 1. So the sun drives into the earth and the earth rises up the form. That's how plants work. That's how we work. It's just a biological function, and it's just a thing, right? Plant drives its energy into the sun, warms it up, drives it in, it becomes a driving force, and the earth becomes the grounding of what gets risen up. Gate 49, it's a gate of principles. They call it revolution because sometimes your principles are new and they become a revolution. Hey, you can't have all the money and we do get to eat, so we revolt. It's that would be it in its extreme nature. In a mundane way, it would be in the house with something, and the person with this gate says, hey, the principles need to change to this, and that might be a bit of a revolution in a household, but nothing to this degree. So it's this, for him, it's this law of necessity. Revolution has no support unless it is perceived as necessary. Revolution has no. So right now he's on a revolution to get all this Green New Deal stuff in. He's getting all these. His job in the United States and around the world is to get people like prosecutors and so forth elected. So Klaus Schwab's busy getting people in cabinets of government. This guy's busy dealing with the lawyers and making sure that the law has the prosecutors that won't prosecute certain crimes and do things the George Soros way. He backs them, he pays, and then they are beholden to him no matter how free these prosecutors and district attorneys say that they are, and plenty of judges too. I think that's why Donald Trump went on a judge rampage and replaced as many as that would come up, you know. So that 49, line 1 is the law of necessity, and based on what he can make people perceive as necessary, and in the detriment, what he's living out is the misuse of that influence to insist that that it's necessary to take this action. It's called the helter-skelter syndrome. It's basically to commit disorder on purpose to prove that there's disorder. It will
cause the problem and offer the solution.
Yep, that's a principle. That's a principle in humanity. And so we can't call the principle itself necessarily bad. We can call it 7-centered versus 9-centered. We can call it old way versus new way.
I like that. I like the 7-centered versus
9-centered. Yeah,
because that's what they do. They create the problem and offer the solution. And who's the man they call in to give the solution? Him.
This guy.
And when the solution goes a certain way and his loyal people get thrown in jail, who bails them out? Him.
Right.
Everything that you are saying is to a T of this man.
Yeah, and so he's living this out, and at his tender age of 91 or 2, right now, with all this ego and this emotional wave that he has crashing up and down, he's aware he's at the end of his life. He's more dangerous than ever. And he knows it because of this channel 5342. It goes from the root center up to the sacral. It's a very short channel, but it's called a format channel. There it is. 53 says, I'm going to begin this no matter what. And when the beguiling sun is driving into his non-principled earth, and he is saying, I can do this because I'll make the crisis to prove there's a crisis. His gate 53 says, I'm not sure why, but I have a sustained adrenalized energy to get that started. And gate 43 says, I have a sustained sacral motor that will see it through to completion. This is the channel of maturation, and what it begins, it must finish. What it begins, it must finish. And if it doesn't finish, then that unconscious 2838, which is the channel of struggle, will see that there's no purpose. He is designed to take an enormous risk to make that happen. That's what 3828 does. It takes risks in order to prove there's a purpose to it all. So he will take any risk necessary.
Is there a channel that lets you know if someone just won't die?
Yeah. There is? Yeah, well, they're called the integration channels. He doesn't have one of them. He wants to have them because he's got a gate 20, but 20 2010-7 make the integration channels. It's very difficult to kill these people, generally speaking. But hey, he's got enough money and he strategically is focused on being able to finish the struggle that he wants to have. And because he started it, he will finish it, and he'll break down any aura to get to it, and he'll penetrate any topic to make it happen. And he's a split definition, so he always feels unwhole. So he'll elicit and grab any personality he can get and any person to join his cause, to do whatever, to bridge the splits in his body graph in the now. And the biggest split I see in his body graph, one of the biggest ones, is from 59 to 6. He's missing a gate 6. That would bridge his split. And that's all about intimacy, the intimacy that he's not sure he can have ever. So he's got gate 59, which always penetrates the aura of the other. When somebody comes into his aura, they're afraid because he breaks down their aura. Hey, if you don't like what I'm saying, let me get closer to you so you can become more afraid of me. That's George. And in that fear, he never gets the love that he needs because gate 6 is closed to it. So no matter what love is in his life, most of the love in his life is turned off to him, whether they fake it or not.
Mm.
You know, you can fake it, but you can't actually be it if you're not it. And gate 6 is what's open to the penetration or not. Gate 59 simply penetrates. So George is a pig. He's fat bastard. He's pig vomit. He's all of them things. And he's not even aware of it as he lusts for love and direction and to quiet the mind of what doesn't matter.
Is there anything in his chart that shows self-esteem issues? Because I see something on his face that shows could be construed as a self-esteem.
Yeah.
He has a 1.
Huh? Well, the 1 is terribly insecure, Jen. It's terribly insecure if it doesn't have all the right foundation, and anything can shake this man's foundation. Anything. Us talking shakes his foundation. The movement of freedom around the world, that shakes his foundation and makes him terribly insecure about certain things. But there's one more, Lori, and it's where we started. Gate 36 has this incredible fear of inadequacy. Gate 4, these are on solar plex. Gate 49 has this incredible fear that he will be judged, that God will not come through, in a metaphor of a sense. And for him, his God is money and power, that his power will not come through to save him, and the revolution will fail. But inadequacy and a fear of inadequacy is gate 36, terribly concerned with his adequacy.
Mm-hmm.
So what does he do to clear that? He penetrates things. What was this feature you were referring to?
He's got a good line down his chin right here. And people have this line down their chin. They really need to be noticed. They need to be thanked for what they do. And they tend to base their self-esteem on what they can do, rather than just having that soul esteem that, like, gosh, I'm worth something because I exist and I'm here and I made it, and that means I'm worth something, and then building from there. His is basing everything on what he can do. I'm only worth as much as I can do.
That's the ego talking. That's all of this. You just described this whole chart in a nutshell, in a way.
That's a 1 too. That's that from a 1 side of things. I wouldn't be surprised if anybody that has a 1 would have that. I'm going to go check me because of the 1, we get stuck in the perfectionism and the imposter syndrome, that we are, obsessed that we don't want to put something out because it's not quite ready yet, or we're going to get judged. It's not going to be complete.
Yeah. And when you add an ego to that, he has to prove it. The ego is all about proving stuff.
Yeah.
Those of us with an open ego, we've got nothing to prove. We've got a great big pass on all of that. And yet we're, our not self mind plagues us and makes me say, well, you got to think about it. Think about how you got to prove some stuff. You got to be better than. But when it quiets down, we recognize I've got nothing to prove, actually. And in that, we become perfect. He's got a defined ego. And in gate 51, he loves to do shocking things to prove whatever it is he's going to do. It's like he's a shock monster. And what he's trying to shock is love into his life. And he will never admit that out loud. He will never admit that out loud. Someone's going to have to be the fairy godmother that comes down in his sleep when he's half awake and half asleep before he ever got honest answers out of him. That or about 4 martinis might get some truth out of him too. Right? Something of that nature. But 36 feels under such crisis, and that ego needs to roar up and prove I can do it. And 4323 structuring says, I better do it because I think I know. And I'm explaining what I know. And then 2838 says, well, I'm struggling to prove it. And then 5342, the channel of maturation, says, I'm only going to prove it, but I'm going to start it, bring it through its beginning and its middle and its end, and we're all going to have that experience. And the experience is his elite club having all the money and half of us being dead so that there's enough resources for them. I mean, that's the bottom line for them. Did that answer your question, Lori?
Yes, it does. Yep. Yeah, absolutely answers my question. I feel like, gosh, I'm interested in, Jen mentioned, I wonder if all ones have this. I'm fascinated to know if certain features, if there would be a way to map and correlate it over human design so that you could look at somebody and know their human design based on their face.
Well, I have that. I started noticing it because I've been wanting to get into face yoga. So I noticed that I have this line, and I'll admit that I have that. And I have that gate. It's unconscious and that channel. So, and I'm a 5/1, and that's one of the reasons that I get stuck in my business, or when I'm putting together a presentation or something, I have to constantly tell myself, get out of my way, get out of my way, get out of my way, because I'm always worried about it.
Well, as a large picture, this man's not self. He's got a wonderful not self. It's very obvious. It's very out in the open, and his not self is always beguiling the rest of the world with the formulas he comes up with, doing it through the agency of trust me, I know, and allowing it through the agency of his emotional wave that makes everyone afraid of him, and being the principled man that has no principles and will say anything just to say that it's there. Let me make up a voting crisis, and now I'll say, see, you got a voting crisis. You need more Zucker boxes or whatever. He'll invent
Mules.
Yep. He'll invent all of that stuff, and he'll gladly, this man does not mind watching. He's got this experiential wave and a powerful ego. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually has witnessed people being put to death and or just starving. He can look at it and stomach it. He's got a gate 49. He can stomach that when he's the evil, wicked, rotten rat bastard that he is. So
is that so he can, in a chart when you're reading, can you indicate a killer or not? Like you just said that he could stomach that. So
no, I can't per se indicate a killer because that's future telling. All I can do is look at what has happened. So the future that's now the past that we can look at and then put into the chart and be like, oh yeah, obviously look at this. So it's sort of diagnosis for what has taken place so far. And at his age, it is predictive. This is definitely a predictive tool for analysis, because he's been here so long this way. The chances of him stopping any of this are very low. He hasn't done the work to be awakened. I guarantee you he knows about this stuff. I guarantee you. He knows all about it.
They have to, Dan. They have to. And you see the recurring theme that we have, that open head.
The open
head.
Another
one.
Yep. It's a recurring theme. I see a lot of open G centers in these people without the right love and direction, meaning they can't tell. And rather than letting it just be an open locator, lots of people have an open G center. It's great. They become the locator. That G center is always locating the love and direction. So you have an open G center, you become the ultimate Geiger counter that can always locate where the love and direction is right. If you want to speak in languages of a reflector, an open G center allows that being to reflect the love and direction. Is it healthy? Does it suck? Is it somewhere in the middle? Is it worth working on? That's what that openness does. But when your not self mind gets a hold of it, all it says is what the authoritarian hears. And the ego being hears, I don't have. It's not self-mind, always says, I don't have. I don't have. And I don't have too many things that don't matter about the love and direction, which I can't seem to identify. And notice his body's going to shit and his face is going to shit. And the one gate he has on his open G center is gate 46, which is supposed to be the love of the body. Yet, he's just, I don't know. See anything else in there, Lori? I see some great big ears and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. The top of his ears bend a little bit. And in face reading, this would be somebody who grew up hearing things they didn't want to hear. Sometimes it's parents yelling and arguing. Could be anything. We'd have to ask him to know for sure. But there's a not liking something he grew up with hearing he didn't like. Also, his earlobes are rather long, which people that have bigger and longer earlobes are said to be able to sit in places of mental stillness inside. At times, the Buddha has it really, really long ears because he's like the epitome of mental stillness, right? And so he's cultivated some sort of ability to sit in mental stillness. We have to think that these people have all the tools. They've been trained in, they've got it all, I'm sure.
And what they don't have, finish.
No, go ahead.
Well, what they don't have, they have their minions that come and give them reporting. I doubt very seriously George Soros went through the process of understanding his design, living through the painfulness of saying, oh shit, oh my God, here I am. And then coming out the other side, recognizing, oh my God, this is so much better. I'm back to me again. He didn't go through this process for himself. I guarantee you some of his minions did and reported it back to him. And he is very astute. He studies and studies. That's what that first line does. And so he will see the glint in their eye and recognize, oh, minion number 1 over here, he's on to something. What do you got? Tell me how I can use this to make people be afraid. Or he just gets a report. Or he holds a gun to someone's head who can read and says, tell me what scares this man. And then he goes to that man with what scares them and makes them be the district attorney he wants them to be and the judge he wants them to be. He's really just infiltrating our politics through these means and some through the advertising of the media. He's infiltrating through portions of media, but mostly through grassroots efforts that build up these GSAs, these non-governmental agencies that pretend they're doing good and really just keep the people impoverished and educate them poorly. George Soros is wrapped up in all of that. Don't give me educated, smart people. Give me workers. That's George. So educate them accordingly. And for God's sakes, don't educate them to think too much.
Yeah, it's funny though, because he needs all those people. He's nothing without those people that help him. His nose bridge dips on the top kind of significantly. He's a person that needs other people to help him. He wouldn't be anything without all his minions and all his people helping him.
Dude, that explains why he's always so afraid. George Soros doesn't show up much in public. He's a scared man. That's what I always gather every time I see him because of all of his unconscious definition. I see loads of fear. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different gates of actual fear, and he hasn't figured out how to process these through. And melancholy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's got 7 gates of melancholy. So there's always sadness ripping through this man, and he doesn't want to admit that. He finds that a weakness, and he's afraid. And so I can see him getting totally discombobulated because he's all strategic. If you're all strategic, your arrows, someone throws a chink in the works, or they sabotage the workings a little bit, and next thing you know, he's all out of sorts. He's like, what do you mean my computer doesn't work exactly like it did yesterday? What do you mean what do you mean that 0 is now a 1? What do you mean it's whatever? Yeah. Anything that he can't deal with change. Yet his design does. His design is a perfect design to deal with all kinds of change, but he himself can't.
No. That's in his face also, his eyelids. When you can see a lot of eyelid on a person, It said in face reading that this person suffers easily. So when things don't go right, they can't sleep, they can't eat, they can't stop thinking about it, they're ruminating about it. And that amount of eyelid, this is a man who suffers a lot in his personal life. I don't know what that looks like because I think he's suffering about the wrong things.
Right.
Thinking about things that don't matter.
Yeah, he is suffering. I just think it's about
the wrong things that don't matter,
yeah,
right?
Things that don't matter, yeah.
Yeah, because an open head center is indicative of allowing yourself to get carried away with things that don't matter. That's the keynote. And things that don't matter is like a whole mountain of things. It can be anything, and it becomes too much until this being centers themselves and says, I am thinking about things that don't matter, but now I'm just letting it go through because only one thing will really matter to me in my now, not all the rest of them. And then the mental chaos starts to shut down. He has no way to shut down his mental chaos because, look, he's got a conscious receptor, gate 64, in his head center. That receptor is always receptive to confusion. The mental pressure and obscuring pressure of confusion. It creates chaos, and in him, it creates both chaos and the feelings at times of futility. So he doubles down extra hard on his efforts and has an extra large wave that blows up extra hard while he's penetrating the other with his aura, making them do as he says. People are afraid of George and they do what he says, period. Except a few. A few don't. There's always a few that don't. That's the thing. Yep. So George is a douche. Let's sum it up with that.
Yeah, I second that.
I second that.
Third.
Yep.
There
George,
we go.
we vote you a douche, but you could be a nice man if you want to change your tune. I always end all these podcasts with the same thing. The Grinch, his heart did grow 3 sizes one day. So it's not impossible that a thing can happen. So we can always hold out hope. But till then, you're a douche, George.
Yeah, sorry, George. We vote you a douche.
You're a douche.
There are many things we wish you never did and never will do. And I'm glad you're so old.
Yeah, me too.
Great job, Dan and Lori. I think that was a lot of fun. I like that.
Yeah.
That was fun. Thanks so much for having me on, Jen and Danny.
Yeah.
This is awesome and so cool.
Next time we do one, let's do one that we like. It'll get depressing if we only do the bad guys. We've been trying to alternate a little bit.
You're right. I'm curious about Mr. Rogers. There's some good guys I'm super curious about.
Fred Rogers?
Yeah, super curious about him.
Can we do Fred Rogers? I know he's not current per se, but he's Dr. Rogers.
Because he's iconic, people care. I got so many views on my TikTok. I read his face and I just was surprised at what I found. And so I'm thinking if you did his human design, it would be shocking. People, he is a beloved person in history. I feel like people would be so into it. I'm into it.
Absolutely. Something tells me he had a lot of face going on. And there was something that always tell me Fred had some deep darkness in his personal life that he would just never bring onto screen. The kind of thing that a normal person has to work through, right? A person inside the world like us, they have to work through. Maybe if you had a loving wife, maybe that helped, family. But there was something dark going on for him inside that sort of like how Robin Williams had something dark going on inside him and no one could figure out why.
Right. Well, maybe together we can crack the code and figure out what it is.
Yes, we're cracking the code.
I love that. We'll definitely. You want to do that next week?
I think I can. Let me text you back and just I'll make sure, and then I'll text you back and confirm. But I think it's a go.
That's perfect, guys. We'll make sure to post that. So stay tuned and to follow Lori. The link is down below. You can check the description and find her. The Instagram is in the description along with her TikTok, and go learn some more about the face reading. I am intrigued because there are some things that you said tonight on the show that's got me thinking, especially as it correlates to human design. So
Lori, do you have just a moment to stay on after, or do you need to book?
I can stay on.
Then, guys, I guess we're done. Jen, close us up, man.
Yes. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Tune in on this Sunday's show. We go live 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And make sure you like, subscribe, and follow the show. We actually hit, we should be over 3,000 views on our YouTube channel. Super excited about that.
Nice.
So thank you guys for, all your support, and stay tuned because we have something really big coming your way with the website and some things that we're going to be offering. So until next time, we will talk to you guys later. You'll have a good evening.